Okay, let's go deeper. Okay, you want to know about Genesis 25:25? And it says, the first one to come out was red, his whole body like a hairy garment. So they called him Esau. Now, the question of the day, because he came out red and hairy, does this make him white? To find this answer, we must go back. Now, it's well known that black men can be hairy and red. Now tell me that you wouldn't describe him as being red amongst all of these brown skinned beauties. Now the question of the day would be, where did he get his skin color from? To find this answer, we must go back even further. Now, if you didn't know, all of these people mated with each other. And I can prove this through scripture. But before I prove this through scripture, let's understand that Cain up here was given a white mark. Now, if everybody's dark, then Cain's mark had to be white. Now, scripture said that if anybody find Cain, they would not strike him. And I guess they wouldn't strike him because he looked like a fallen angel. Now, it says here that Cain took a wife and she had a son named Enoch. Now, Enoch had Edrad, and Edrad had Mahujal. And Mahujal had Methuselah, and Methuselah had Lamech. Now, this is where things get a bit confusing because on Cain's side, they don't have any time periods. So, where did Cain get his wife? If we break it on down, it says Adam was 100 years old before Seth was born. So, here we can see that Cain's line already existed well before Seth was even born. This would be your serpent seed line. And we know that Adam and Eve have many other children. So here on Seth's side, we see the same thing happening again. Enoch to Methuselah, Methuselah to Lamech, and then Lamech to Noah. Still one whole family, cousins. And then down here on Cain's line, Naamah had married Noah. Now, could the Most High have tried this line and see that it wasn't going to go where he wanted it to go? Because this is the serpent seed line. And then he started another line. But it's obvious that these two lines end up mixing together, producing Noah. And he was an albino. Inside of the book of Enoch, it talks about his body being white as snow and red as a blooming rose. He had long locks of hair that were white as wool. And it says Lamech was afraid of him because he looked like a fallen angel. The mark of Cain. And this mark will go through the bloodline. Part 2 on white skin or skin called ruddy. Now we talked about how these two bloodlines have mixed together. So when scripture says that Noah was perfect, it really wasn't talking about his bloodline, but it was talking about his obedience to the Most High. Because it says his righteousness was perfect inside of his generation. And this was his generation. Understanding that people lived for hundreds of years and had many children. Now we're talking about this white, ruddy streak. And we know that Cain was marked with a white streak. Now, this white streak would go through all of the blood lines and enter into Noah. Now, in the book of Enoch, we discussed that Lamech and Methuselah were afraid of this son that they had because he was all white like snow and red as a blooming rose. This proves that he was black because he had long locks that were white as wool. Now they thought that he had been sprung from the fallen angels because that's what the fallen angels look like. White, luminous, glorious. And because he looked like this, they were wondering, was he going to have wrath on the earth? Now there's been a lot of debate about this. And people think that, no, Noah's blood was perfect. But scripture never really goes into the blood because everybody had the same blood flowing through the same two people, Adam and Eve. Now, I know when we think about people that look like this, we automatically think of leprosy. We think of white being something that's a curse from the Most High. But all leprosy was not considered a curse by the Most High. I can prove this in Leviticus 13:12. Now, if this disease breaks out all over the skin, and so far as a priest can see, it covers all the skin of the affected person from head to foot, the priest is to examine them, and if the disease has covered their whole body, he shall pronounce them clean. But if it is a raw flesh that appears, it appears to be unclean. So the Most High says that some leprosy is considered clean. Why would the Most High say this? Maybe because Noah was an albino and his seed would go through the generations, the same mark that Cain had. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is evil. It's just a mark from the Most High. It's just part of a gene mutation. Rebellion brings decay of the flesh. Unclean. Now, we have found out a lot about the bloodline now. And yes, everybody in scripture was black. Now, there's no debating about this. And now we can find out where this white skin is coming from. It is most definitely a gene mutation. Now we know that this lack of melanin is a natural occurrence. It is a mark by Abba that goes through the generations. And we also know that Noah had it. But it wasn't a bad thing, because the Most High was judging by righteousness, not skin, not bloodlines. Because at that point, everybody had a pretty much holy bloodline coming from Adam and Eve. But Satan did leave a demonic mark, a mark of rebellion. And that too would go through the bloodline. And it could also change the color of the skin. Could. And I say could because Abba Yahuwah brings the plagues. Now we know melanin is a substance of the body that controls the color of your hair, eye, and skin. And it says the amount of melanin you have is included in your genetics. Now inside of these genetics, we can find out that they are superior. Right here in Exodus 1:19, it talks about the Egyptian women not being as vigorous as the midwives of the Hebrews. They were able to give birth very quickly. And we know that's something that these women did on the fields in a squatting position, birthed babies with no problems. Isn't it funny how we have to go to the doctor today? And maybe because most of us live a life in sin, not being married when we have our children. Another way we were superior in Daniel 12 is when he said, please test your servants with nothing but vegetables and water to eat for 10 days. And after the 10 days, the Hebrews were healthier and better nourished because our genetic makeup loves vegetables and water. The dietary laws are better for our makeup. Now it says when you come away from the sun, you will lose melanin. And this is why they chose the slaves from hot climates to work the fields here in America. Because the gene mutated people could not stand the heat. Now there's a well-known fact that these areas that are cold would constantly pull resources from this area. So the further you go up, you lose your melanin. And that's what Esau did. Mixed with every nationality. Every nation losing his melanin.